Okay, what I've got on the table here is a Bison 8-inch 3-jaw chuck that I've disassembled. It's partially clean now. It was pretty filthy when I first pulled it apart. There was all sorts of gunk back in here. Still have, you can see little bits of gunk down in there that I have to remove yet. I'm slowly getting her all cleaned up, and then we'll reassemble her, and hopefully it'll help performance. So I just got this chuck for a new to me lathe. So this one's a little bit safer than the past one, the Hindi that I had, and I can thread metric as well as standard with this one. And not that I do that much of that, but it's sure a handy option. Plus it has a collet in it, and as well as this chuck here. So this can be useful to me. Still haven't leveled it up, haven't really got it running yet, but it's on my to-do list. Another little feature I have here is an indicator right built into this thing. So as you're, let's see if I can move this. Hopefully you can see that. But as you move it, this moves in thousandths. This, you can set this to 0. You can see that little line right there. And then you can move it forward as far as you would like and keep track of it that way. I thought that was kind of a neat little feature. It also has a turning dial, which I didn't have on my previous one, and some nice little features here. This is a little bit cleaner. Of course, it's a newer lathe. It's got this bar down here to stop it with, which I really like, because if you got tied up into a lathe, your hands wouldn't be free to turn off a switch. So I'm pretty happy with this thing. And we'll see how accurate it is. Is a Chinese, what would you call it? A duplicate of something. But one thing that I do have to say, it has, it says that the ways are all hardened and ground, and it doesn't look like they have much wear on them. I'm pretty sure that where I got it from was dealing with plastics. And so I don't think that there's a lot of stuff caught up underneath the tailpiece as it slid up back and forth on the ways, or the carriage as it went back and forth. It all looks pretty clean to me. I haven't cleaned it up yet. I haven't done much of anything. But this base is not tin. This is all cast. This whole base is a thick cast base. It's about a ½ an inch thick right here, all the way around that the main body sits on. So I think that I got a pretty good machine. If it's accurate, it'll serve me well, I think. So we'll see how it works. So I started without you here. What I'm first doing here is I'm kind of lubricating this a little bit. Putting a little bit of oil down in here to get started with before I start putting any parts in it. And I've cleaned all this stuff out, used acetone to clean the metal real well. And I just want to get a nice coat of oil on all surfaces here. We are going to put grease in here. Okay. All the parts have been cleaned thoroughly and brushed, and It doesn't feel right. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. Just has to push him down a little bit, I guess. Let's go down some. There we go. Well, it's not moving at all in here. I want to make sure that's. I want to find out why she's not moving. So I'll bring you back in a second. Okay, I've got it down in there and she's turning just fine. So now I can put my little cans in here. Go. I'm going to clean these real quick. There we go. That's where we need to be. So I had to pull this out just a little bit to get that to set in where it's supposed to be. Take that all the way down. Action's good, I like it. Okay, we'll take her over to our next one. Okay, now I'm going to go get some grease. I didn't have that handy, so I need to find out where we have it in the shop, and I'll bring that back and we'll grease this before I put the cover on it. Okay, I'm using some of this red and tacky grease. It's a multi-purpose and it has anti-seize in it, so we're going to take that and smear that on the gears. Get an equal distribution all the way across. I'm just putting it on with my fingers. Put a little bit on all my gears here. About the area where you're going to see the wear pattern. This has a little oiling mechanism in the front. You can squirt in some oil to oil up that the spiral up front. I forget what that's called, but that's what I'm calling it. Gears here. I'm going to go ahead and put this cover back on and make sure it's got all the junk off of it. There we go. We'll go ahead and seal that up. This is a buffalo, or bison rather, called buffaloes. A bison chuck, and it's all metric. So all the fasteners are all metric on this thing. Now I put a witness mark on this. Let me find the location of that. I'm going to have that facing me so I can make sure that I get the other part back on it. Back plate on it where it's supposed to be. There's the witness mark. I'm going to take and stone that real quick. Looks like it got some sharp edges there. That feels better. Get that all clean. Find my witness mark on this one. There we go. Now line the two up. Oops, twisted that handle, didn't I? Now this is soft enough, as you notice, that it's not going to cause any damage to that base plate. But notice how the line just pretty much just disappears there. And you can see that the line has pretty much disappeared. And you can see my witness mark right there. That's how I lined it up. I had a hard time finding where this joined before. The line is so fine, nice and tight. So, okay, so now we can start on the top part of this. Whoops, yeah. Okay, I've got all my chuck jaws They're all clean now. I'm going to oil this. I want to kind of show you something real quick. These are all sequenced on the way they have to go in. If you notice, this is number 1. Let me see if I can get it in there. Notice the lip on number 1 versus number 2, which is this one here. See the difference in depth? And number 3 is even deeper. So that we have to make sure that each jaw goes in sequence. So 1 first. Let's see. Come on, baby. There we go. You can see, there we go. So, now I take it over to 2, and you can see the spiral gear on the inside. You find out where the end of it is, and as it comes out, you line up your next chuck. So I'm going to take my number 2, put some oil on it. And start it in. Okay. There we go. And number 2 is in. Now I'll take you down to number 3. What I'm going to try to do is help you to see how it interlocks in there in that spiral. Now notice how the end of the spiral is just now coming out here. So that's where you want to pull this back to about right there so you can get your chuck started. Chuck jaw started rather. Now it's grabbed all 3 of them. Now I'll take you out a little bit and bring this all the way to center. If you don't do that in that sequence, what will happen is you'll end up with the chuck out of time. My hands got oil all over them and they're all sticky. Those tie in just perfectly right together at the center. So that's just the way it should be. So we've cleaned our bison off, and I'm going to bring you down and show you a little bit closer here. So this is where you oil your chuck. The spiral gear and your chuck jaws is through this little puppy here. Now somebody at the previous owner of this had put actual grease in here, and it had plugged this little valve up, so if you wanted to oil it you wouldn't have been able to, because it was just totally caked full of garbage that was stiff, and so no oil would be able to get in there. So on this side of the chuck where the spiral gear is, I only put an oil. I didn't use grease. On the other side where the gears are, I used a grease there. That's a completely sealed unit back there, on that side. So the grease is best back there. But on the front side, we'll oil this periodically so that this whole area stays oiled, and we don't have grease seizing up in there and caking, which would cause the jaws to stiffen. Where the chuck jaw fits, there's a number right there. The jaw itself, this jaw, well, hard to get that. This jaw has a number on it as well. On the back, it has a number 2. Okay, and this here, that's your 3. This jaw has a 3. Let's get that down in there. That's 1. This jaw is 1. So that's the first one you start. Then you work down to 2. 2, and then 3. So 1, 2, and 3. You sequence those just like that, and you have to make sure that it catches. So if it doesn't catch when you start to turn it right away, then back it back out and start it again. So anyway, so that's the reassembly of the Bison Chuck.